off, you were talking about returning to Ashman's on the 6th of March about 8:30 a.m. and you told us you made observations and so on. After that, did you attempt to get in touch with the CEO and the returning officer?
I did.
Were you successful?
I was not. No one answered their phone.
Did you eventually get into the building?
No, I did not.
Well, how long did you wait outside?
Having arrived there about 8:30, I left there just after 12, so it would have been in excess of 3 hours.
And I have to ask you this again, just for completeness. You were wearing your identification, that you were GECOM commissioner.
The badge that I described earlier on, I had it on a lanyard around my neck.
While you were kept outside of the building by the police ranks, did you see any GECOM official?
I did.
Who did you see?
There were several clerks and drivers. Clerks who I saw working previously with returning officer Mingo, and drivers attached to GECOM and GECOM vehicles traversing in and out the rear entrance of the GECOM building, of the Ashman's building.
So these persons had access to the building and you as the commissioner did not?
Correct.
Was there any indication by any party that they had a request for recount?
Yes, while there.
Yes.
While there, I observed Charles Ramson, Jr., counting agent of the People's Progressive Party Civic. I saw Mr. Lennox Schumann, the presidential candidate of the Liberty and Justice Party, and I also saw Mr. Nigel Hines, a representative of the Change Guyana Party, present.
May I, Mr. Gunraj, when we're speaking here of the 6th of March.
The 6th of March, yes.
Yes. You said at about 8:30 you returned to the Ashman's building.
Yes, sir.
And you went there in the event of any party wishing a recount.
Yes, sir.
Now, that was something that ought reasonably to have been anticipated by any GECOM commissioner.
Yes, sir.
The possibility of a recount.
It was catered for in law. So we were.
It ought to have been, it could have been anticipated given the fact that it was provided for by law. It was something any GECOM commissioner could have anticipated.
Yes, sir.
But the building was locked.
Tightly so.
Are you aware that GECOM took a decision to secure that building and to lock its commissioners out?
The commission took no such decision, sir.
Thank you.
So in fact, when you were not the only commissioner there that morning. Commissioner Robeson then was also there.
He was.
And had he too been excluded from the building?
Yes, he was.
Shortly before midday, did anyone from GECOM come to where people were gathered outside the building?
We were informed by ranks of the police that GECOM officials would allow specific persons into the building.
Do you know where they got that information from, which they were communicating to you? Yes.
I believe that someone of the GECOM officials communicated that to the police because we saw them We saw them speaking to each other before the police spoke to us.
When you say GECOM officials, what do you mean? The CEO, DCO, who?
One of the clerks that I referred to earlier, who was working with Mr. Mingo.
Yeah, but Mr. Gunraj, you can't be sure that that was what the clerk was conveying to the police.
That is true. That is true, Chair.
Right.
But, you know, Mr. Gunraj, let me ask you this. A GECOM staff member told you that GECOM will accept requests for a recount. Can you show the gentleman paragraph 45 of the statement? He's at a disadvantage because there is so much information in this statement.
If the commission has no objection, might he just keep it on?
He should. I don't have a
Because
problem with that,
instead of us
It's his
having to
thing.
pass it all the time, and he could just put it down and
Thank
refer to it.
There we go. 45. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Now, the impression conveyed to me is that this is a substantial procedural issue. The issue of a recount is a substantial procedural issue. And this GECOM staff member, what designation did this person have, if you know?
As best as I can recall, sir, it was a clerk to the returning
A
officer.
clerk employed in the secretariat.
In the returning officer's office.
Well, that seems to me so loose an arrangement by GECOM, that the clerk is communicating with the commissioner, will you take recounts? What kind of system is this?
Commissioner, as ridiculous as it appears,
That's what it
that
is.
is exactly what happened.
Okay.
Do you know the name of that clerk?
I don't recall the name of it.
But do you accept that what you say in paragraph 45 is correct? That just before midday, a GECOM staff member informed you and others there that GECOM will accept requests for recount?
That is so.
And you said you had seen Charles Ransom Jr. and Ramson, I beg your pardon, Ramson Jr. and Lennox Schumann waiting to submit such requests?
Yes.
Now after this, did you attempt to have a meeting of the commissioners convened?
Yes, I did.
And did you have any success with that?
No, I did not.
Well, can you expand a little bit? Tell us how this attempt was effective.
So, Commissioner, a commission meeting can only be summoned by the chairman. As a consequence, any request for a meeting has to be channeled to the chairman. For a commission meeting to be held, there must be a quorum. And a quorum, as per the Constitution, for the Guyana Elections Commission are 2 members from each side and the chair. So a minimum of 5 persons being present to form a quorum for the meeting.
Well, let's go step by step. Given the explanation so far from you, it seems to me that the first step is to get the chairperson to summon a meeting.
Correct, sir.
Yes, well, were you able to do that? Because there's no point in telling us about a quorum if you can't get a meeting.
The reason, sir, for detailing this step is because my only point of contact would have been to make the request for a meeting to the chairman.
Correct.
As to the reasons why the meeting was not held, either whether there was she couldn't muster a quorum, or it didn't move forward, that would be, of course, speculating. But I made several requests to have a meeting called, none of which, and we had no meetings.
You made these requests of the chairman?
Yes, sir.
By speaking to the chairman directly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I take it the chairman was not avoiding your calls. You were able to reach her.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, after this, there were court proceedings and so on, and the Chief Justice made a ruling, gave a ruling.
Yes, she did.
And was the chair, the GECOM chair, able to convene a meeting subsequently?
I believe the court ruled on Wednesday, and the chairman scheduled a meeting. That would have been Wednesday, the 11th of March. And the chairman scheduled a meeting for the morning of the 12th of March 2020 at GECOM headquarters, High Street.
That's at Kingston.
Yes.
And while you were at that meeting, did you receive certain information?
Yes, I did.
What did you then do?
The meeting had not yet started, and upon receipt of that information, I immediately left High Street, Kingston, and proceeded to the Ashman's building.
Now let me step back a little bit. Now, I referred you to court proceedings and the Chief Justice giving a ruling. I take it you knew what that ruling was.
Yes, I knew.
And I take it, is this what prompted you to then go to Ashman's building?
Information I received is that the recount exercise was scheduled to recommence at the Ashman's building. That is what caused me to proceed to the Ashman's building with such haste.
When you got there, what occurred?
By now, the norm was to fight to get through barricades.
The norm for whom?
For myself.
You're wearing your identification and so on as a commissioner still?
Yes, I was wearing my identification as a commissioner. I proceeded to the
Mr. Gunraj, so that you don't wander away from the statement that is in evidence, look at paragraph 48.
Yes.
The narrative would flow smoothly if you stay with what you have.
Guided, sir. So I proceeded, what had become the norm was to fight to get through barricades. A GECOM staffer who at that point, I don't recall his name up to today, and I wish I did, was waving a list of who, the source of that list I am not aware of, but of persons who could and could not, first of all, pass the barricades and then enter the building. And the barricades were several yards away, hundreds of yards away from the building, entrance to the building.
Were you eventually allowed to enter?
Eventually, I was allowed to enter the building.
So before we get to eventually, do I understand that you were not on the list that the GECOM staffer was waving?
I don't know whether I was on the list, but
did the police allow you to enter?
The police did not allow me to enter, and it was only after an exchange between myself, the police, and this GECOM staffer that I was allowed to pass the barricades.
So, before we leave this issue, you were attempting to enter or to go past the barricade. A GECOM staffer produced a list. The inference is, if you're not being allowed, you're not on the list.
Yes, sir.
Good. This is a junior GECOM staffer?
Well, He has to be, because the commissioners are at the apex of the GECOM staff structure.
You were wearing your badge?
I was, sir.
You identified yourself to the police? I'm not finished, and you're ready to answer. Did you identify yourself to the police as a commissioner of GECOM?
Yes, sir.
And the staffer said, no, you're not on the list.
Yes.
You can't come.
Yes, sir.
I see. Thank you.
When you were eventually allowed to enter and you got into Ashman's building, did you see the CEO first of all?
No, I did not.
Did you see the DCEO?
I did.
And did you see the returning officer?
I did.
Tell me very briefly what was happening.
The meeting, there were chairs set up in the tabulation room, the RO's office, in an entirely different configuration than was previously there. The documents that this is the first time I'm going back into this room since I was put out.
Yes.
None of the documents that I last saw there was in the room. And there were several party agents who were questioning the process that will be employed and were making requests in keeping with the ruling of the Chief Justice in relation to the procedure that ought to be followed.
So party agents were asking questions of whom?
Of the returning officer.
And was he responding to these questions?
The first or second questions he responded to, and then there came a point in time when he refused to engage further or answer any more questions, and in fact called off the process.
Okay. When he called it off, did he give an indication as to when it would resume?
He said that the relevant parties, the relevant persons, will be notified as to when it will be resumed.
Is it correct, sir, that the next day the process resumed at Ashman's building?
It did.
Were you there when it resumed?
I was. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And which part of Ashman's building it resumed in?
It was not in the tabulation room. It was in a different part of the ground floor that was previously earmarked as the media center.
We had agreed earlier that the law says that the verification process involves comparison of SOPs with SOPs. Was that happening?
No, it was not.
And was the RO conducting the process? Well, was he engaged in a process?
Yes, he was.
And that process did not include the verification of SOPs with SOPs?
Correct.
And Mr. Gunraj, that process that Ms. Cho is inquiring about, verification of SOPs from SOPs, was that part of the reasoning, or rather a recommendation of the Chief Justice in the decision you told us about just now?
Yes, it was, sir.
Yeah.
While you were there, did you see a marshal of the court?
I did.
And what happened?
A marshal of the court attempted to serve documents on the returning officer.
Was the marshal successful in so doing?
Eventually. Prior to successfully doing so, he was prevented from even entering the area and accessing the returning officer upon whom he had to serve the document.
Well, how do you know that?
I was standing there. I saw him being prevented by GECOM staff and security. In fact, I intervened as an officer of the court and explained to the security persons that these are marshals of the Supreme Court who have certain rights and who are clothed with certain authority to effect service.
Sure, but GECOM security, by who, well,
There
who
was
are you talking about?
There was GECOM security
Uh-huh.
and there was police ranks also present.
Can you remember the names of any of the GECOM security detail?
The same gentleman waving the list earlier on,
Mm-hmm.
he was also present.
Then you don't know his name?
For the love of me, I can't remember. I really hope that I would remember it before I
Was it
finish.
GECOM security, you say?
He was a person employed by GECOM.
Well, not necessarily GECOM security. Because
Commissioner, to tell you his exact designation
like so.
would be difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's somewhere in there. But
What I'm saying is that you cannot say with any degree of certainty that he was security attached, employed with GECOM. You cannot say that.
I can say with certainty that he was not employed as a security person.
Right, fine.
Okay. When the RO was served and you realized that he was being summoned to court, did you also go to court?
I did.
You attended the court hearing
I did.
and you knew what took place at the proceedings.
Yes, I do.
Then later that day, both you and the RO returned to Ashman's building, correct?
I did.
And when you got there, can you tell us what, if anything, the RO said to the persons there?
When I got there, this is back to Ashman's. The RO, would you permission?
Yeah, sure. If you want to refresh your memory, look at paragraph 52.
Yes. When we returned to Ashman's building, the RO informed the persons who were part of the tabulation process that he will inform them when the process will resume.
And did you later receive notification of when that process would be resumed?
Yes, I received notification that that process will resume at GECOM headquarters, High Street, Kingston, later that afternoon.
Mr. Gunraj, is any reason given why the process was being moved from Ashman's building to GECOM headquarters?
No, Commissioner. None was given.
And had, to the best of your knowledge, had the commission been consulted about the change of the venue?
The commission was not consulted.
Did you go then to GECOM headquarters at Kingston?
Yes, I did.
Tell me what you saw when you got there.
When I got to GECOM headquarters, pardon my ad nauseum statement, the usual barricade song and dance had resumed. It took difficulty, in fact on this occasion, it took more difficulty in navigating the barricades because outside of the barricades there were large throngs of protesters wearing paraphernalia of one particular political party. Once I had navigated those barriers and gotten in, I went into the GECOM compound, and under a shed in the compound. I observed the RO had set up a brown cardboard background with what appeared to be a dirty bedsheet strung over it. And then there was a projector set up with projecting, and they were testing the projections onto that.
I have to ask you this. Would you as a commissioner in any circumstance have approved that kind of arrangement for the verification of election results?
Absolutely not.
Did you know beforehand that this was the arrangement that was going to be made at Kingston?
I did not.
So having seen this arrangement when you got there, what did you do?
I objected to the returning officer.
What is his reply?
He proceeded notwithstanding my objection.
Sure.
Mr. Gunraj, I am aware that polling places are published in the newspaper, polling places. I'm not sure if there is a publication in the Gazette, the official Gazette. But I know the newspapers in the run-up to election carries publications for the advice of to the public of polling stations in particular polling divisions.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Places of tabulation and verification, are those also advertised?
The places of tabulation and verification is the office of the returning officer. In this case, in the case of District 4, the office of the returning officer, as was gazetted, was Ashman's Building, High and Hatfield Street.
So the office of the returning officer is published in the official gazette.
Yes, sir.
GECOM headquarters in Kingston was not the address for the office of the returning officer for Region 4.
Correct, sir. And that was part of my objections raised with the returning officer, which he ignored and proceeded.
So tell me, in the normal course of things, if the place of verification is to be changed, can the returning officer take that decision unilaterally?
No, sir.
Would that need to be a commission decision?
Yes, sir.
Or could that be an administrative decision made by the chief elections officer?
No, it had to have been a commission decision, because it is a commission decision that settled on Ashman's Building as to be the returning office of the returning officer for District 4.
Okay. There could not have been anything unreasonable if the chief elections officer was satisfied for any good reason that there needed to be a shift in the verification exercise from the Ashman's Building to GECOM headquarters at Kingston. There would be nothing unreasonable for him to make such a recommendation for a quick decision from GECOM.
Of course not, sir.
Was that done?
It was not done.
Right.
Well, you said you protested to the RO. Did he take you on at all?
No, he did not. He proceeded.
And was there any other commissioner there?
I can for certain say that Commissioner Robeson Ben was there.
And did he also raise any issue with the RO?
He raised similar issues. In fact, he joined me in raising the issues that I was raising.
And what was the RO's response to
His
it?
response was a similar one.
Having not received a response, what did you do?
I left the GECOM compound and proceeded out of the compound to on the outskirts of the compound. There was a media contingent gathered, and I proceeded to address the media.
While you were addressing the media, do you recall whether the police did anything? Would you like to refresh your memory?
I can if
Paragraph 54.
Thank you. After I completed addressing the media, I remained within the barricades that were placed outside of GECOM. There was one barricade at High and Barak Streets at one corner, and then there were barricades at High and I believe that's Lamaha or Quart Streets. And there were police ranks within those barricades, and there were other persons, including the media and so on, other persons with me, party agents, etc., that were within those barricades. As I remained out there, I observed that the police removed the barricades that were at High and Barak Streets, thereby allowing the protesters that I referred to earlier on to come into the area that we were in.
And you say that you were threatened by the protesters.
Yes, I was.
What threats did you receive?
The protesters were shouting, if I'm allowed to say what they were shouting. They were shouting, Granger, Granger, Granger.
No, well, that's not a threat.
And
What threats did you receive?
And they specifically, in fact, one person specifically said to the group of us gathered there, including the media, if you know what is good for yourself, you all should leave.
So you were threatened, well, they told you to leave. It was an instruction to leave.
A veiled threat.
I wouldn't consider it an instruction, but eventually we left.
And when the protesters had come in closer to where you were, what was the closest they got to you?
There was nothing preventing them from coming into contact with me.
And about how many of them were there, would you say?
Several scores of persons.
You left, and did you return to the building sometime later?
I returned sometime later that evening.
Okay. Now I want to ask you, are you familiar? Sorry. certainly, or GECOM's commissioners started to meet more frequently?
As was necessary, yes.
Yes. So, on the 15th of March, do you recall that day?
I do.
And on that day, you also met, the commission also met, not so?
Yes, it did.
And you during the course of that meeting, you met with the CARICOM team, which was there to make arrangements for a recount, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And part of the commission's responsibilities included the determination of the methodology and logistics for the recount, correct?
Correct.
And you liaise with CARICOM with respect to that, correct?
Yes.
Now, I want to take you to the 1st of April 2020. Do you recall that day?
I do.
And the commission again met on that date.
It did.
And the reason you all had met was because there had been a particular court ruling which was important to the issue of a recount.
Yes.
And at that meeting, some of the commissioners asked that the meeting be postponed to the following day, correct?
Correct.
Did you all meet on the 2nd?
Of April?
Yes.
Could I request to be refreshed from my statement?
Yes, look at paragraph 79.
Yes.
No, you met on the 3rd of April 2020, not so?
Correct.
And I'm going to take you to the 8th of April 2020. This time the commission met with the CEO. Correct? You want to refresh your memory? Paragraph 8.
As I stated earlier on, the CEO is an ex officio member of the commission. So when we meet, we will meet with the CEO.
Okay. So on that occasion, the 8th of April 2020, did the CEO present a draft plan to the commissioners?
He did.
And did he suggest that there should be 156 days, or he suggested a timeline of 156 days for the conduct of the recount?
Correct.
What was the commissioner's position on that? What were the commissioner's positions, respectfully?
I could start out, Senior, by saying that what my reaction was, and that was an immediate rejection of that proposed timeline.
In fact, it was rejected by a majority of the commission, correct?
Correct. That majority of the commission being myself, Commissioners Shaddick and Ben, who together protested it, and the chairman.
And the CEO was then ordered to revise his plan and bring a new plan to the commission by the 14th of April 2020. So
Correct.
This is the 8th and he's being given another 6 days, correct?
Correct.
So on the 14th of April 2020, did you all meet, and was the CEO part of the meeting?
Kindly remind me of the date?
14th. This is the day you...
Yes, on the 14th of April, the CEO came back to the commission seeking clarifications in relation to the revision that we ordered him to do.
Okay, so he didn't come back with a revised plan. He came back and sought additional clarification.
On the 14th.
And you all met again on the 15th.
Correct?
And had the CEO by this time adjusted the timeline which had been earlier rejected by the Commission?
He made certain suggestions and alterations which did not significantly change the previous timeline he proposed, that is to say 156 days.
So did you all meet again on the 16th?
Chair, the dates are a bit hazy with your
I'm not checking.
Sorry.
Look at paragraph 83 if you wish to refresh your memory.
Yes, we met again on the 16th.
And on that date, it was agreed that the recount process would start in early May of 2020.
Correct?
So let's go to May, the 2nd of May 2020. The chairman had basically convened or sought to convene a meeting of the commission for that day. Not so?
The chairman invited the commission, all the members of the commission and political parties, representatives of political parties, to a meeting at the Arthur Chung Convention Center.
And did the CEO turn up for that meeting?
The CEO did not turn up for the meeting.
Did he send a representative?
He did not.
Do you recall the 6th of May 2020? If you can't, look at paragraph 85.
Yes, the 6th of May 2020 was the commencement date of the recount exercise.
Which continued until the 9th of June 2020.
Correct?
Now, the commission, is it correct to say that the commission had asked the CEO, had required the CEO, I beg your pardon, to produce and present a report to the commission subsequent to the recount?
Yes, it did.
And on the 13th of July 2020, did he submit such a report?
Yes, he did.
Now, I want you to refresh your memory from paragraphs 86 and 87, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the report which he submitted on the 13th of July 2020, what did he say in that report to the commission?
In that report, Chair, they...
No, I'm not the chair.
my apologies, and I apologize to you too, Chair. In that report, the CEO stated that he was unable to ascertain that the 2020 general and regional elections, which he oversaw, were impartial and credible.
Pause.
May I just inquire, would that report be available to the commission?
I will have to make inquiries. Now, prior to this day, the 13th of July 2020, to the 13th of July 2020, let me ask it this way. At any time between the 2nd of March 2020 to the 13th of July 2020, had the CEO advised the commission that he was unable to ascertain whether the March 2nd general and regional elections had been impartial and credible? Had he communicated any such concern to you during that period?
No, he did not, ma'am.
And in that report, what else did he say?
In that report, he gave a victory to the APNU plus AFC coalition. And quite interestingly, the margin of victory was even greater than that which was fraudulently declared by Claremont Mingo.
Now, I want you to refresh your memory from paragraph 87 in particular, because I have one or two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in this report, if I am understanding you correctly, first let me ask you, are the contents of paragraph 87 correct?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
So in his report, what you are telling us is the CEO said that 60% of valid votes were now no longer valid?
Correct?
And out of the remaining balance, he apportioned 67% to the APNU plus AFC party,
Correct?
and he apportioned 30.5% of the votes to the PPP-C party.
Correct, ma'am.
In his report, did he also claim that the APNU plus AFC had won another district, District 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the, sorry,
Commissioner Gunraj, can you tell me, you told us earlier today that the CEO is a creature of the Commission,
Yes, yes.
and his functions are statutorily defined.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct there?
You are, sir.
Is there any statutory authority to the CEO to determine the validity of votes cast?
No, sir.
Is there any authority conferred by law on the CEO to reject any votes cast?
No, sir.
now this report, which contained all of the material which I have just drawn your attention to, was it accepted by the Commission?
No.
Thank you. And when you say it was not accepted, was this a unanimous non-acceptance or a majority non-acceptance?
It was a majority non-acceptance.
But it was received in the hands of the commission, was handed over to the commission.
Yes, sir, it was.
It was a majority, as you said. Yes.
I want to take you to the 16th of June 2020. Is it correct that the chairman wrote, the GECOM chairman wrote to the CEO ordering him to prepare his report based on the actual outcome of the recount? Would you like to look at your statement? Paragraph 89. I know it's been a long day. It's been a very long day, Mr. Gunraj. You found it?
Yes, ma'am. But before I answer, the date that was given early, the previous report that we just discussed, it was not in paragraph 86. It is not the 13th of July 2020.
June.
It is the 13th of June 2020.
Okay, yes. Thank
That-
you for
that-
that correction.
You're welcome, ma'am. That was throwing my dates off.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So the 16th of June, did the chairman write to the CEO ordering him to prepare a a report based on the actual outcome of the recount?
Yes, ma'am.
And he was given a time frame within which to submit it, correct?
Yes, yes, he was.
He was given until the 18th of June 2020 to submit it.
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, the commission convened to receive it, or sought to convene to receive it.
Yes, there's a meeting scheduled to receive it.
And were you all able to convene?
No, we were not able to on account of the absence of two commissioners from the other side.
So you didn't have a quorum.
We did not.
Did the CEO show up?
He did not show up, or he did not send the report.
Did he send a representative?
No, he did not.
Was any reason forwarded to the commission for his absence?
None was forwarded, sir.
Now, during all of this time, there were court proceedings which were ongoing and so on, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright. So, on the 22nd of June 2020, after there had been a ruling of the Court of Appeal, did the Commission receive another report from the CEO? Would you like to look at paragraph 91?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
No, let's do that.
Is that date correct? Or you're not sure?
Trying to put it back into the timeline.
Well, let's put it this way. Did the CEO subsequently submit another report to GECOM?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this other report which he submitted, there was an issue involving 115,000 votes.
Yes, ma'am.
So you say in your statement in paragraph 91 that this disregarded 115,000 votes. What can you clarify?
Yes, ma'am. In the first report to which I referred, the CEO disregarded almost 300,000 votes. There were about 460,000 odd votes cast in elections, and the CEO's report, to which I previously alluded, he only considered 185,000 odd votes to be valid.
But when you use the term he disregarded the votes, what do you mean?
So in the first report,
Yes.
he would have disregarded about 300, just under 300,000 votes.
Meaning, he did not take those votes into consideration about 300.
Yes, sir. In his
Yes.
explanation, he disregarded those as being not valid.
Okay, that's right.
So, when you're saying disregarded, what you're basically saying, as you had explained to us earlier, is he invalidated valid votes?
Yes.
Okay, and on the 8th of July 2020, there was a ruling by the Caribbean Court of Justice. Did the Commission then order the CEO to produce a report reflecting the valid votes counted in the national recount as per the certificate of recounts generated?
Yes, ma'am.
And he was ordered to do this by the 10th of July 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he produce it for the Commission?
He did not. Instead, he came to the Commission on that said 10th of July 2020 and sought further guidance.
And on the 11th, did you, at the Commission or as Commissioners, receive a report from the CEO?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it correct to say that that report was now using the numbers declared by Mr. Mingo in March of 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall the 13th of July 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it correct to say that on that date, the Commission formally set aside all previous declarations and decided that the recount figures should be used?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the Commission instruct the CEO to present a report based on the national recount figures by the following day by 2:30 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a meeting of the Commission on the 14th of July 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the CEO submit a report?
No, ma'am.
Was he asked why he was not submitting a report?
He was asked and he refused to answer any questions. At that said meeting, the commissioners on the other side walked out of the meeting, thereby making it lose a quorum.
Was that meeting then rescheduled for the following day?
Yes, ma'am.
But because of a court case, you all did not convene, correct? On the 30th of July 2020, there was a decision of the Court of Appeal,
Yes, ma'am.
and the chairman of the commission again requested a report from the CEO.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all eventually convene on the 2nd of August 2020?
We did, ma'am.
And on that day, did the CEO submit a report to the commission?
Finally, he did.
And in that report, did he use the figures, the actual figures from the recount?
Yes, he did, ma'am.
So I'm just going to look at my timeline. The recount ended on the 9th of June 2020, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So between the 9th of June 2020 is that the birthday? 10th of June 2020.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, June
Yes.
2020.
And the 2nd of August 2020, despite numerous requests by GECOM's commissioners, the CEO of GECOM refused to provide an accurate report reflecting the outcome of that recount. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I wouldn't say requests, I would say directions.
Direction. Now, commissioners, I have several exhibits, documentary and audiovisual. So if you will allow me, may I move to the exhibits?
Yes.
It's been a long day for Mr. Gunraj. Hope you don't mind, sir.
I don't, sir. I consider it
Well,
part of the service.
Thank you. While senior counsel is getting up her documents, can I ask you, would I be correct to say that it is the presiding officer at the polling station who is statutorily authorized to pronounce on the validity of a vote?
Yes, sir.
So first of all, you spoke about seeing a court order on the 5th of March 2020. That's the big day in terms of this whole chronology. Yes?
Start. Yes, ma'am.
So if you see a copy of that, will you be able to recognize it?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Might this be admitted as SG2 and copies are available for the commissioners? Right. You spoke about a decision on the national recount dated 16 June 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
If you see that, will you be able to recognize it?
I would.
Something here is not stapled properly. Is that the chairperson's decision on the CEO's report?
Yes, ma'am.
Might this be admitted as SG3? 3 copies for the commissioners. Now, during this period of time, the newspapers were carrying accounts of what was taking place with respect to the whole electoral process. Is that correct?
Correct, ma'am.
And there was a report in particular of the 26th of June 2020 in the Starbrook News. If you see that report, will you be able to recognize it? June 26th.
Yes, ma'am.
Might that be, well, just a second. That would be SG4, I think.
Yes.
Is that the newspaper report?
It is, ma'am.
And did you have in your possession a copy of a letter dated 11th July 2020 from the CEO to the chairman of the commission?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you see it, will you be able to identify it?
I would be. This letter includes the results as provided by the report is provided by the CEO as well.
Thank you.
Final report.
No,
No, this is one of the preliminary
Preliminary
reports.
report.
Might this be
SG5.
5? And on the 9th of July 2020, the chairman wrote to the CEO requesting his report. In fact, this is on the March 2nd, 2020 general and regional elections by 2 p.m. on the 10th of July using the valid votes counted in the national recount as per certificates of recount, correct?
yes, ma'am.
And if you see that letter, you'll be able to identify it.
Yes, ma'am.
SG6.
What did I do with the copies of that? Did I, commissioners, did I pass up the copies of that already? Oh, yes. No, no. I'm sorry, I just had it in my hand. I don't know what I did with it, but I will provide copies from the exhibit admitted into evidence. I'm sure I probably mixed it up here. And on the 16th of June 2020, the GECOM chairman again wrote to the CEO asking that he prepare and submit his report by 1 p.m. on the 18th of June 2020 to the commission.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you see that letter, you'll be able to identify it.
I would be.
Might that be marked SG7, and I have
7 or 6?
7.
7, and I have copies here.
We didn't get 6.
I'll have to make further copies of 6, I'm sorry. On the 23rd of June 2020, on the 23rd of June 2020, the CEO wrote to the chairman of GECOM attaching a table with what he said were valid and credible votes.
Correct, ma'am.
And he attached a report to that letter.
Correct.
So I want you to look at these documents, tell me whether this is in fact the letter and the documents attached.
Yes, ma'am.
Might this be marked SG8? And I have copies. Commissioners, may I inquire whether the one that I did not have copies for was the letter of July the 9th? No? Or we haven't got there yet?
Yes.
July 9, this one.
Ah, okay. Well, I have found the copies, so that would be copies of SG6.
This is 9.
This one is 9.
No, 8.
Yes, as SG8. So I'm now giving the
6.
copies of 6. Now, just for the sake of completeness, you told us at the very beginning of your testimony that you had been appointed by the President as GECOM Commissioner, and this had been in 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just going to show you a copy of your instrument of appointment. Tell me whether that's it.
It is, ma'am.
Commissioners, I'm respectfully asking that this be admitted as SG10, and I have copies. So you have to put all that in.
10 or 9. The last one he signed was 8.
What is that one? Sorry, SG9 would be the instrument of appointment.
9.
Yes. You took off what you want, sure? Commissioner,
Gunraj,
sorry.
in this document, under the hands of Mr. Lowenfield, which is SG8, it says I hereby attach a table showing the valid and credible votes cast.
Yes, sir.
The valid and credible votes that he's referring to in the table,
Can I see a copy?
SG8.
Might it be shown to him? SG8.
SG8.
Yes, sir.
The valid and credible votes that he is referring to, which he says are reflected in his table, were those determined by him or,
By-
sorry,
By him.
those were determined by him.
Yes, sir.
But in answer to me earlier, you said it was only the presiding officer whose statutory remit was to determine the validity of votes.
That is great, sir.
Are you aware of a legal provision which says that the statement of poll, which the presiding officer must pin on the polling place, is conclusive evidence, those words, of the results of the elections for that place?
Yes, sir.
Can you help us with the act and the section, if you know offhand? 89(1)A of some act?
It is most likely section 83 or 84 of the representation
Okay.
of either section 83 or section 84 of the representation.
So the law provides that the statement of poll pinned up at the polling place is conclusive evidence of the results of the elections at that place.
Yes, please.
Is anyone clothed with the authority to alter that?
No, sir.
Commissioners, we have a consider. Could you just lean over and pass that back to me, please? That's an actual exhibit. Now, we have very lengthy audiovisual material. We've tried to cut it down, and we will pause it if we think that either it's going on too long or it doesn't show something which is really useful to the Commission. But we can do that exercise either now or tomorrow morning.
Well, my concern is really that Mr. Gunraj has had a long day, and sure. If you don't mind coming to the...
I'm at the mercy of the commission, sir.
This long day is nothing compared to the long days you've had during.
I'm sure you will take me into the dark hours, sir.
And we have no barricades on police officers.
Yes, that's sorry.
So we can complete this tomorrow morning.
We can